Hi, I'm Christina Daves, serial entrepreneur, award-winning inventor, and the founder of PR for Anyone. Welcome to Experts Corner. Today we have John Lee Dumas with us, and he is the founder of Entrepreneurs on Fire, and that's also the name of his podcast, which last year was #1 in iTunes. So I've just discovered this podcast thing and what a great tool it is to generate publicity for your business, and it's a great marketing tool. It's a great way to establish yourself as an expert. So I asked him to come on today and share his knowledge on podcasts with you. Okay, so welcome, John. I'm so excited to have you here. And I would love to talk about, if you had a top-rated podcast, I'm sure that you were pitched hundreds of times. So what could make a pitch stand out to you? What would make you want to read more, and what would make you want to have that guest on?
No, well, first off, Christina, thank you for having me on. Love what you have going on here. I'm excited to have you on Entrepreneur on Fire to share your journey, so people are going to get to find the inside scoop of Christina. And for me, you're right. I mean, having a podcast that gets downloaded over 550,000 times a month in over 145 countries, that generates six figures a month in income. We won Best of iTunes 2013. We've been in Inc. and Time Magazine. I get pitched a lot, so I've seen it all. And, to be honest with you, though, I'd like to share some of my successes early on when I was pitching others back before, I had a really successful podcast, because I think that's powerful as well. Because within the first 3 months of launching Entrepreneur on Fire, I was able to have Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, Barbara Corcoran, Gary Vaynerchuk, 4 huge people in the entrepreneurial online space, mind you, but 4 huge people on my podcast. And it was incredibly powerful. And the reason I was able to actually get them on was because of the manner I pitched. I led with value first, Christina. I led in saying, listen, I'm asking for 25 minutes of your time, to join me on a Skype call. It's going to be valuable for you because I've built a platform where I have entrepreneurs, sidepreneurs, wantrepreneurs, small business owners that listen. And at that time, Christina, we had about 100,000 downloads every single month. So I shared with them those numbers. I shared the image of us being a top-ranked business podcast. And I said, you'll be speaking to your audience. And what I really focused on, Christina, is both Seth Godin and Tim Ferriss had just launched books. Both were New York Times bestsellers, so they were obviously still looking to get more exposure to the right audience. And I said, my audience is the audience that wants to hear about your book. So I showed with them why it's going to be a great exchange of value. And so now people that pitch me, Christina, those people that lead with value first are the ones that are successful.
So what about a little guy? What about somebody who doesn't have a list of 100,000 people, but has really good value to share? They're just starting, they're building. What can they do to get you to even open that email?
So I'm going to open the email, but what I would probably say is I'm going to come back to them and say, listen, 90% of podcasts, 90% of what you actually see within iTunes don't make it past episode 7. So until I see a podcast that's at episode 10 or beyond, I really question if that podcast is really going to make it. And so I really strongly encourage people to follow the path that I did. And I have a whole templated email that I respond to try to help educate them a little bit and say, listen, I started small. I built my foundation. I went to conferences in my niche. I talked to speakers there that weren't A levels or B levels, but were successful and had their own little audiences. And I got them on my show first. I built that foundation. And then when the time was right, I reached out to the big boys, who had large audiences and were really busy when I was already worthwhile. So build a foundation, Christina. You got to start somewhere, start with a base, and then grow from there.
Okay, great. And I'm finding that the podcast is big marketing right now. It's a great way to show that you're an expert in the industry, which is a big thing in PR. If you want to get exposure, you've got to prove that you're the expert in your industry. So if someone wants to get started with a podcast, like I'm thinking about it now, what do I do?
if you want to get started with a podcast, there's a number of ways to do it. I mean, I'm a little prejudiced. We have two amazing courses online. One that's called Podcast on Fire. That's just 14 modules, Christina. It's bare bones. It takes you from creating to launching your podcast. Our higher level course is called Podcaster's Paradise, which takes you through every process of creating, growing, and monetizing your podcast with over 120 tutorials, a Facebook group just for those members, and we do monthly Q&A sessions via webinars. But for people that are really on a budget right now and just want to get the basics and maybe learn about it, there's a couple things. Number one, I have a 99-cent book in Amazon.
Oh, yes.
It's called Podcast Launch. It's the #1 ranked book in Amazon on podcasting.
That's great.
It has over 245-star reviews because it just delivers value.
Okay.
It comes with 15 video tutorials, Christina. So that's a great place to start. And then following that, something that's even cheaper than 99 cents, I do a free weekly podcast workshop every week. It's totally free. It's all value. It's live. I'll answer your questions, Christine. If you come there, I answer everybody's questions.
Okay.
And then we do show everybody what Podcasters Paradise is all about at the end. But the first, 75% of it's just value on podcasting. And we actually, everybody that attends, we give them that book Podcast Launch for free.
Oh, okay. That's great. Thank you so much, John. And that's it for this edition of Experts Corner. Thank you.